Imagine for a moment holding a photograph of your deceased child. It's the only image you have left of them. But in this picture, something is different. Something is impossible. There, standing beside them, faint and translucent, is a figure, a familiar face, a loving embrace from beyond the grave. This wasn't a trick to you. It was a miracle, a final, precious connection. Welcome to the haunting and often heartbreaking world of Victorian spirit photography. But behind these ethereal images of comfort and closure lies a much darker story. A story of exploitation, of preying on the most vulnerable, and of one man whose deception became so profound it may have crossed the line into something far more sinister. This is the story of William H. Mumler, the man who captured ghosts on film, and the grieving widow who accused him of something much worse than fraud. In the wake of the American Civil War, a shadow fell over the nation, a shadow of grief. Hundreds of thousands of sons, husbands, and fathers never returned home. There were no bodies to bury, no final goodbyes. The living were left with only an aching, silent emptiness. And into this void of sorrow stepped a man with a miraculous invention. William Mumler, a humble engraver from Boston, claimed that by accident he had discovered a way to photograph the spirits of the departed. His images were stunning. A living subject would sit for a portrait, and when the glass plate negative was developed, there they were, a faint, ghostly apparition of a lost loved one standing behind them, a hand on their shoulder, a face peering from the gloom.
For a public drowning in grief, this was a lifeline. People flocked to Mumler's studio, paying exorbitant sums, a month's wages or more, for a chance to see their lost soldier boy one last time. They weren't buying a photograph, they were buying a moment of peace. But the establishment, the scientists and the skeptics, they saw a vulture. They saw a man growing wealthy on the tears of the broken-hearted. Newspapers decried him as a fraud, a ghoul in a photographer's suit. They tried to expose his methods, double exposures, pre-prepared plates, secret accomplices slipping into the frame. But Mumler was clever. His studio was meticulously controlled. He used the client's own camera sometimes, or had them bring their own photographic plates, seemingly eliminating any chance of trickery. The spirits he produced were uncannily accurate, knowing details he seemingly couldn't have known. It was as if he truly had a foot in both worlds. And then Mary Todd Lincoln walked through his door. The former First Lady, shattered by the assassination of her husband Abraham Lincoln and the recent death of her son Ted, was the most famous mourner in America. She arrived in disguise, under the name Mrs. Lindahl. Mumler took her picture, and when the plate developed, there he was, the ghost of President Abraham Lincoln himself, standing behind his widow, his hands resting protectively on her shoulders. The image was published nationwide. For Mumler's supporters, it was ultimate vindication. How could this be a fraud? How could he have faked the likeness of the most famous man in America? The controversy reached a fever pitch, and finally, the law stepped in. William Mumler was arrested and put on trial for fraud.
The trial was a media circus. The prosecution brought in experts who explained in detail how the tricks could be done. They presented evidence of his past as an engraver, a man skilled in manipulating images. They argued it was a simple, cruel con. But then the defense brought forth a parade of witnesses, respectable, sane, credible people who swore on their lives that the photographs Mumler had given them were genuine, that the spirits he captured were real. They spoke of comfort, of closure, of messages from the other side that only they could have known. The key moment came when the prosecutor cross-examined Mumler's star witness, a well-known physician. He demanded to know how this educated man could believe in such nonsense. The doctor looked him dead in the eye and said, "I would rather believe that a spirit could appear on a photographic plate than to believe that a man could be so wicked as to trifle with the broken hearts of a mother who has lost her child." The jury was swayed by that very sentiment. In the end, they acquitted Mumler. There was simply not enough evidence to prove, beyond a reasonable doubt, that his ghosts were fake. He walked out of that courtroom a free man, but his reputation was in tatters. His business never recovered. But this is where our story takes a darker turn, a turn from fraud to true crime. Because not all of Mumler's clients found comfort. Some found only more questions, and one found a horror she could never have imagined.
She paid Mumler his fee and left, initially comforted. But as days turned into weeks, a chilling thought began to gnaw at her. The ghostly image of her husband, it looked familiar, but not in a loving way. She went back through her old family albums, her heart pounding, and then she found it, an old, pre-war photograph of her husband with his brother. She held the spirit photograph next to it. The ghostly face wasn't her husband. It was his brother, a man who was still very much alive. Mumler hadn't summoned a spirit. He had used a living man's likeness. But why? How did he get that specific photograph? The widow's mind raced, piecing together a terrifying puzzle. Mumler had a network of informants, people who would gather information on potential clients. They knew who had died, who was grieving. But what if they had also stolen a photograph from her home? What if this wasn't just a con, but a violation, a calculated, intimate betrayal? She began to wonder if Mumler's assistants had broken into her house to borrow the album, to copy the likeness. The comfort she felt curdled into a deep, chilling fear. She had let this man into her most private grief, and he had used it, not just to take her money, but to mock her, to play a cruel psychological game. The ghost in her picture was a taunt, a secret only she would understand.
It was a message. I know your life. I have been in your home. Your grief is my business. So I have to ask you, the Criminal Codex viewers, what do you think was really happening in William Mumler's studio? Was he a simple con artist, skilled in the dark art of manipulation? Or did his deception run so deep, so personal, that it crossed the line from fraud into a more intimate, psychological crime? Tell me what you believe in the comments below. And by the way, tell me where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments. I read every single one. William Mumler faded into obscurity, but his legacy is a chilling one. He proved that the most powerful currency in the world is human emotion, and that the most dangerous monsters are not the ones that hide in the shadows, but the ones who offer you a light in the darkness. He didn't just sell fake ghosts. He sold stolen peace of mind. And for some, he replaced grief with a lingering, unexplainable fear. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Criminal Codex for more true crime stories. See you in the next one, where the truth waits to be uncovered.